Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. Kevin McCullough, That Kevin Show. People often try to ask me what That Kevin Show is like. And I said, if you smashed Letterman into Gutfeld and pushed it into SNL, maybe? I don't know. We try. We have some fun. Although I don't have to write very many parody sketch pieces these days because I just take out the Kamala real video and play it on the show, and everyone laughs all on their own. Anyway, that preceding editorial, not the viewpoint of my guests, any of them that appear on the show, unless they voluntarily say that they are. But I'm so glad to welcome back my next one. She is one of the founders. She is one of the guiding lights. She is one of the maybe most influential people in all of the world, called The Chosen, because she's married to the guy that thought it all up. Amanda Jenkins, welcome back.
Thank you. That intro took a number of turns.
Didn't it though?
Holding on.
And you were like white knuckling it all the way through, like, where's he going with this?
What are we doing here? All right, let's do this.
Anyway, good to have you back.
Thank you.
Season 4. Okay, so when it came out in theaters, my 3 kids, who have now all started tracking very closely with it, couldn't wait for each of the next chapters to get released. And then Dallas dropped the big bomb that, it's not going to be streaming for a little while. And so there was the wait, and Dad, has he said anything yet, and everything else. And then finally it came out streaming. But season 4, while it is some of the best storytelling and continues to be some of the best television that's ever been created, bar none, you can put it up against anything that people put in the discussion of great TV, and The Chosen is right there. But it's also starting to get to the really serious part. And I'm curious, Amanda, as you're looking at the scripts, I know season 5 is either in production or you just wrapped, but what are we going to anticipate in the next chapter of this 7-chapter book?
I mean, I think it's what everybody's dreading. It has been an interesting journey, even for us, being on the ground floor of creating it. We're all dreading it. I mean, we're all, the actors are dreading it. The crew is dreading it. I think it's going to be an emotional next couple of years for us on set. We did just wrap season 5. And I can't, I don't get to say what that covers, but we're right there.
Well, we know where season 4 ended.
Right.
And there's not a lot of room to go anywhere.
Exactly.
So you just go forward is what we're expecting.
Everyone knows what we're walking into. And I think the difference with the show that the show is making is that we're no longer just flipping pages of the story and going through the highlights. We're really getting to know these people. And it's changed the way I've done research for Bible studies. When I come across the story of a martyrdom of one of the guys, I've heard these stories my whole life. All of a sudden, I'm pausing and I'm crying and I'm envisioning it very differently. And so obviously the crucifixion is going to be that times 10 for everybody involved. And that's what there is to expect. I mean, it's exactly what you might think. Although I will say some really cool depictions of those things along the way that you'll have to wait for. But yeah, sad nonetheless.
That's one of the things that it's been noted for, is not just the great writing and the great storytelling, but the cinematography and the effects, and everything that's been done has been done in such a timeless effect on the screen, and it really has looked phenomenal. The reason you come to see us is because you don't really do that much on camera or anything like that. You're involved in a lot of the ancillary vision for what The Chosen can be, and you've got a new Bible study out. I think it's titled God's Goodness for The Chosen, an interactive Bible study for season 4. What can people expect from that?
We are tracking along with the seasons thematically as we do our Bible studies that kind of coincide. So we're not studying the show in our Bible studies because it's a show, and we're studying the scripture, but the themes are kicked off by each season. And so in this one, for anyone who's seen it, it's all about suffering and Christ's presence in that suffering, but suffering nonetheless. And so interestingly, not coincidentally, my co-writer and I were both in real seasons of suffering. And and so it poured out of us where we were just authentically. But what we found was, I think the operating title for this Bible study was for a little bit was this suffering for the chosen, which I don't think would be a great seller. But it also isn't where we ultimately landed. It was that we're suffering, but when we spend time with the Lord, his goodness begins to eclipse that suffering and how he's good in spite of it. And of course, that's what we're going to see on the cross. There's no greater example of suffering that is eclipsed by the goodness of the Lord inside of that suffering. So that's what the Bible study is about. And we just went into it personally to learn because we just couldn't see through at that point. And what I learned has been such a comfort to me. I feel like I have done this Bible study before offering it to everybody else.
Well, I think that, and people have different motives for doing what they do, and I don't judge the motives. I look at the fruit and try to say, hey, what was produced by that? But if you study any amount of scripture at all, suffering is a consistent theme throughout the entirety of the biblical narrative. And you're right. There's not, and for those of you that are watching and listening, and that I'm a Christian, but this isn't per se a Christian show, just deal with this for a second, because more than likely, some of you are in fact suffering as well. And suffering actually serves purpose. It actually serves to refine and to develop and to define us in our relationship or our lack of relationship with that God. Maybe speak to that for a second, Amanda. How has suffering in your own experience, in your own walk, how has it changed the fiber of who you are in terms of how you see yourself before God?
Well, it's interesting because I think if I'm being honest, I'm not sure that happy times ever lead me back to God. And that's just sad, but true. I think when things are going well, we don't actually consider the heavier things. We don't consider our own lack. We don't consider our own inability to control everything. And so to me, suffering is the thing that drives me to God. And so I wish it was a different way. I think that's probably pretty universally true, that abundance doesn't necessarily lead us to seeing our spiritual need. And so I've been driven to my knees in this last season. I've had a sick kid, chronically sick kid. We cannot figure it out, and we cannot get her to maintain a comfortable lifestyle for any length of time. And so she's suffering. So I'm suffering. And what God has shown me in it is that not only is he present in it, that he wants to use it, but it is an upside down type of logic, that it is the thing that is showing me who he is more than letting the good times roll, to be honest, that he's kind, that he's a comforter, that he's long suffering, that he's patient with me, that I am in need, that I do have need that only he can meet, that only he can meet in my daughter's life. And so, it utterly transforms you to show you your own lack and your need, and then where really the only place to go to meet those needs.
That's well said. The name of the Bible study is God's Goodness for the Chosen, an interactive Bible study for season 4 of the Chosen TV series. We're speaking with Amanda Jenkins, who is maybe the most important person in the entire Chosen operation. And we're honored to have her with us. It's Kevin McCullough coming back from Times Square. Don't go away.
All I want is to see your kingdom come.
I want that for you too.
Lazarus is very sick.
This isn't the sickness that leads to death.
What is the other verse?
What are you talking about?
Numbers don't just change just because I've directed my attention elsewhere.
Maybe
I and the Father are one.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.